Hi, Viola Rose here, and I'm coming on to make a video about hair, about growing your hair out. Now, I recently made a video about linen, and I said at the end of that I would make a video about hair. So I've been getting some requests for that. So I am gonna do it right now and talk to you about the science and the understanding about why growing your hair out to its full length is amazing and has spiritual properties, psychic properties, energetics properties of why you would do that. And the research that I've sort of done online to kind of have me come around to this idea. So I first heard about this. So Drumbelow Melchizedek, who I teach workshops for, he doesn't cut his hair. And he was told by Native Americans a long time ago that he should specifically never cut his hair again. And he hasn't in decades and decades. And that, there's spiritual power in keeping it uncut. And then uh, I lived in Portland for a long time, and there's a lot of Kundalini yoga community there. And so I had heard a little bit from like Yogi Bhajan, who would talk about that and how the Sikhs, right, which Kundalini yoga sort of comes out of the Sikh tradition. There's a lot of teachings in there about why you don't ever cut your hair. So the Sikhs they won't cut their hair and they'll wear it wrapped up in a turban. There's science behind all of it. And then there's also the Native Americans and how they will grow their hair long. And there's some studies that were done on that about their psychic senses and abilities that I'll talk about in this video as well. And then just sort of my own take on that. So let me just start by saying I learned that like you can pretty much turn on your spiritual antennas if you grow your hair out. So I have been experimenting with this for quite a few years. Now it's not super long right now because I did have a really stressful time last year, taking on too many jobs and buying a new house and my best friend dying. There was a lot going on, and the stress caused about half of my hair to fall out, which can happen in a really stressful time. And I had grown it out. It was probably down to more like here at that time. And it was so scraggly looking with so much of it gone that I ended up caving in and giving it one big good trim, which of course I immediately regretted. And now it's kind of growing back. So I was starting to feel the effects of it. And I have felt this a couple times before. When my hair gets to a certain length, and I don't even know if I know how long it will go, but all hair grows to a certain length. Your body has its own mechanism. So if you are around communities like the Vril Society from like 100 years ago, the woman with the really long hair that wouldn't cut it, or the Sikhs, you would see hairs at different lengths, even though they never cut it. So each body has its own length that the hair will go to, and then it will stop. And I don't know that I've ever gotten there yet, but I have gotten close enough that I have felt something starting to happen. And so I'm not quite back there yet. It's about here when I start to feel this feeling where my hair feels alive. The ends feel alive. It feels like there's just another limb on my body that's tangible and that I can work with. So I think the promise of growing it all the way out to its full length, like I'm just now, after making sort of that mistake and just trimming it for vanity reasons so I didn't look so scraggly, like I'm just like not cutting it ever again. Like, no, it wasn't worth it. And so now like my hair is actually growing back out. So it's thicker here from having lost it last year. And eventually it'll, get its way down there. So here's some of the things that I have learned. When you cut your hair regularly, like it's not natural to do that. We have hair on our bodies in different places, and it is a natural function. And hair on every part of the body has a function. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. And so your hair, we're like one of the only species that has hair on the head that kind of grows long and doesn't have hair on our bodies. And it's for a reason, right? It is an extension of your nervous system, and they're meant to be sensing reality. And so it's not natural to cut our hair, and humans didn't do it for a long, long time. And this whole idea of hair salons and hairstyles is kind of a recent thing. And so if you just don't cut your hair, then maybe you can tune more into your natural potency. So I've got a bunch of notes from a bunch of research I did, and I'm going to go through them and read them here. So how do I do that? Here we go. So I've got some quotes here to read you from a few various people. And this little quote here is from Deva Khalsa, who is a Kundalini yoga teacher. And here's what she says. Long ago, people in many cultures didn't cut their hair because it was part of who they were. There were no salons. Often, when people were conquered or enslaved, their hair was cut as a recognized sign of slavery. It was also understood that this would serve as punishment and decrease the power of those enslaved. The bones in the forehead are porous and function to transmit light to the pineal gland, which affects brain activity, as well as thyroid and sex hormones. Cutting bangs, which cover the forehead, impedes this process. And so that leads to the story of Genghis Khan, who, when he conquered China, he considered the Chinese to be very wise, intelligent people who would not allow themselves to be subjugated. He therefore required all women in the country to cut their hair and wear bangs because he knew that this would serve to keep them timid and more easily controlled. As whole tribes of or societies were conquered, cut hair became so prevalent that the importance of hair was lost after a few generations, and hairstyles and fashion grew to be the focus. So that was a quote from Deva Khalsa. And I have some quotes also to read from Yogi Bhajan. And Yogi Bhajan is the fellow who brought Kundalini yoga to the West. And, there's been some scandalous stuff, I think, about him, but nonetheless, he had the information of Sikhism. And so this is some of the quotes that he has shared. Our hair fashions might be just a trend, but if we investigate, we may find that we have been depriving ourselves of one of the most valuable sources of energy for human vitality. Here's another. When the hair on your head is allowed to attain its full mature length, then phosphorus, calcium, and vitamin D are all produced and enter the lymphatic fluid and eventually the spinal fluid through the two ducts on the top of the brain. This ionic change creates more efficient memory and leads to greater physical energy, improved stamina, and patience. This activation of your pineal results in a secretion that is central to the development of higher intellectual functioning as well as higher perception. And one more. Your hair is not there by mistake. It has a definite purpose, which saints will discover and other men will laugh at. So that reminds me to talk about this. There was a study that was done with the Native American men. So in the Vietnam War, they were trying to get people to go and fight who would be really skilled. So they went in trying to recruit some of the more powerful Native American men that they could find. And so they found them and recruited them because they had tracking abilities. They could sense the enemy at a distance. And then they recruited them and then, of course, shaved their heads like soldiers, sent them to Vietnam, and none of them could perform their sensing and psychic sensing and whatnot. And then they asked them, well, why aren't you doing this? And they said, as soon as you cut my hair, I wasn't able to do that. So then they actually did a study. And this is an actual study that happened. I don't know the name of it. And they recruited more Native American men and let them keep their hair and found that they could have the same sensing and psychic abilities. And they would pair them together, one who had his hair cut and one who didn't, and see who could perform better. And the ones who kept their hair could sense the enemy at a great distance and all the things that psychic sensing could do. So your hair literally is your psychic antennas. And so I have some notes about this study from a person named C. Young that I found online. The mammalian body has evolved over millions of years. Survival skills of human and animal at times seem almost supernatural. Science is constantly coming up with more discoveries about the amazing abilities of man and animal to survive, and each part of the body has highly sensitive work to perform for the survival and well-being of the body as a whole. The body has a reason for every part of itself. Hair is an extension of the nervous system. It can be correctly seen as exteriorized nerves, a type of highly evolved feelers or antenna that transmit vast amounts of important information to the brainstem, the limbic system, and the neocortex. Now, this is exactly what I was starting to find the longer I would let my hair go, which means that that was that much longer since it had been cut. So if we keep cutting it, we keep numbing that sensitizing ability. I've also read somewhere that if you let your hair grow to its natural length where it stops growing, then at about 6 months after that, that's when your antennas really truly will turn on because the damage that has been done to them will be fixed. I also learned that hair, if you continue to cut it through your life, as majority of people do, your body will have to then keep putting vitamins and minerals and your body's resources into keep growing the hair. And if you don't, it will grow to its natural length and stop. So you're not wasting your energy continually growing hair. So here's the facts on that. About 72 feet your hair, you will grow about 72 feet of hair if you continue to cut it throughout your life. And if you don't continue to cut it, you grow about 5 feet of hair. So that's amazing amount of resources going into growing and cutting hair, growing and cutting hair. So back to a little bit more comments from a C. Young. Not only does hair in people, including facial hair in men, provide an information highway reaching the brain, hair also emits energy, the electromagnetic energy emitted by the brain into the outer environment. This has been seen in Kirlian photography when a person is photographed with long hair and then rephotographed when the hair is cut. When hair is cut, receiving and sending transmissions to and from the environment are greatly hampered, and this results in numbing out. Cutting of hair is a contributing factor to unawareness of environmental distress in local ecosystems. It is also a contributing factor to insensitivity in relationships of all kinds, and it contributes to sexual frustration. Okay, so now I want to read you a little bit from an article called Human Hair, a Biological Necessity. And this is by Dr. Birendra Kaur. Nature puts every hair on your body for a reason. The hair on the legs regulates the glandular system and stabilizes a person's electromagnetic field. The hair under the armpits protects the very sensitive area where the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems come together. This affects the brain and your energy level. Eyebrows protect the eyes from sun and sweat. Facial hair on men covers the moon center on the chin and protects them from excessive moon energy. The hair on top of the head is very long, while the hair on the body is short. If it were only for warmth, the hair on the body would be long also. We only have long hair right over the brain. We are practically the only creature designed this way. Hair is your antenna to receive a picture of the subtle world around you, to tell when people are lying, to feel things before they happen, etc. The natural intelligence of the body is to maintain its hairs. If you allow the hair on the head to grow undisturbed, it will grow to a certain required length required by your body and then stop. So it has been scientifically proven that people who have long hair tend to be less tired, more energetic, and less likely to become depressed. And so that reminds me also of the story of Samson and Goliath, right? When they cut off his hair, then yeah, he lost his power. And then also the Rishi knot. So there are like the Shivites and different people who have what they call a Rishi knot, where they coil the hair on top of the head at the energy center. And I read something about that there's different places that you can coil it. If you're a man or if you're a woman, then you coil it over the front of the head for men and more over the crown chakra for women. And that coiling of that is like a conductive, almost like an antenna that coils the energy and creates this conductive thing to absorb the solar energy from the sun. So that's a lot. Like I'm sure there's tons of more information out there, but that's enough to convince me to never cut my hair again. Like who cares about vanity stuff? Like I did, I guess, a year ago because my hair was looking scraggly and cut it, but I'm not going to cut it again. And so sometimes I'm in environments and I want my hair out because I feel like I'm tuning in more, right? Like I have more in the external as a mapping. And then sometimes I'm in some environments and I want it gone. Like I want it tied up, tucked away, like it's a precious body part. And like I kind of understand why the Sikhs or the Kundalini will wrap the hair in the turban and hide it all away, right? There's a certain spiritual power there. And then braiding the hair feels different sometimes. I feel really drawn to do that as a way to kind of harness the energy in a different way and contain it. So I think that that covers it. That's a basic overview. I'm sure you can find a little bit more out there. There's not a ton. It like you have to really hunt to find information about this topic outside of at least the Kundalini yoga community. So have fun growing your hair. And then, oh, some of the little tips to do is, of course, like sesame oil or oils, because people can get concerned about split ends. I don't ever get split ends, but I don't really use hair products except for like conditioner and a little styling stuff to just kind of make it like some super natural stuff. So I will actually oil the ends sometimes so that they don't get, frayed. And that doesn't tend to be a problem. If it is, then that's maybe a dietary thing or some products that people are putting in their hair. Otherwise than that, I don't ever have too much problems with it. And of course, I'm letting it go. I've been letting it grow gray for like 15 years now. As soon as my hair started to go gray, I stopped dyeing it. I used to dye it black for fun and whatnot. But when it started to go gray, I was like, I don't want to miss this chapter. This is a very cool thing that's happening. I want to enjoy it. So I don't have any dye, anywhere in my hair. And that probably is something that helps me not get the split ends. And so I think that, yeah, dyeing the hair and treating it in those ways can be a process. So you can also just go natural and let that line of demarcation grow out and then get your natural. I mean, if these are extensions of our nervous system and they are sort of alive and if we have energy and consents, can't you imagine that covering them in hair dye and permanently changing their color probably isn't going to be very good for them either and for those types of sensings. And so I recommend it. It feels really good. And I'm almost back to that point where I'm like, oh, I can feel it. And so I'm looking forward to getting there. Okay, much love. Bye.